It was like boom, and then you see the flames come, and then the smoke comes, and it's just horrible.
There's new video tonight of the moments before a person was fatally struck by a Frontier Airlines plane after hopping a perimeter fence at Denver International Airport and walking onto the runway late Friday night. Thanks for joining us this Sunday evening. I'm Mark Salinger. We want to warn you that some of this video could be hard for some viewers to watch. Airport officials say the person climbed over a 12-foot barbed wire fence and was hit by a Frontier flight taking off just about 2 minutes after he hopped that fence. Still don't know why the person was on the runway. DIA says they do not believe that this person was an employee of the airport. Multiple federal agencies and Denver police are now investigating exactly how this happened. The National Transportation Safety Board said today they are also gathering more information about the evacuation of 224 passengers from this flight. 12 people reported minor injuries and 5 were taken to the hospital. Passengers evacuated using emergency slides after the collision sparked a brief engine fire on board that plane. Some of those passengers are raising concerns about the evacuation. They say they were stuck on the plane for several minutes as smoke filled the cabin, then left on the tarmac in the cold once they were out.
There was like smoke filling. I couldn't see the engines, but people that could see the engines could see large flames, and it was really scary. So people were yelling fire, fire, and smoke was in the air. Some people were getting agitated that we weren't given like immediate directions to get off the plane.
An NTSB spokesperson says the agency is still determining whether the evacuation meets the criteria for a full-on safety investigation. Passengers are on their way back to their home country tonight after being stuck on board for days of a cruise ship at the center of a deadly outbreak of Hantavirus. Passengers began evacuating the MV Hondias cruise ship this afternoon after it anchored offshore in the Canary Islands in Spain. It's been about a month since the first passenger on the cruise ship died of a confirmed case of Hantavirus, a rare rodent-borne illness. 2 other passengers have died since then, and global health authorities have worked together on next steps for the 150 passengers that are still on board. The 17 American passengers aboard the cruise ship have not reported hantavirus symptoms and are expected to board evacuation flights out of Spain this evening. They'll be flown back to the U.S. for monitoring at the National Quarantine Unit at the University of Nebraska's Medical Center. With the 17 Americans on that cruise ship now on their way to Nebraska, many people are worried about the potential for hantavirus spread. Now News reporter Rachel Krause joins us now. And Rachel, Colorado is weirdly familiar with this virus.
Yeah, Colorado is used to hantavirus. There have been more than 100 cases in the past 30 years. Some people became familiar with the virus after Gene Hackman's wife died of it last year. Doctors say cases are rare, but a new strain is making person-to-person spread possible.
It is being tracked very closely by numerous agencies across the country and across the world.
After a deadly hantavirus outbreak on a cruise ship, now passengers are on their way home. Dr. Joseph Ponce with Advent Health Porter says there's no need to panic. Hantavirus is primarily carried by rodents like rats and mice. People usually get it after breathing in dust contaminated with bodily fluids of infected rodents.
The way it's spread is typically not very contagious between humans. And that's one thing that we're seeing as very interesting with this new case that's cropped up on the cruise ship. It's probably the only kind of documented case where we've seen it spread between person to person, and it's because it's a specific type of hantavirus.
Dr. Ponce says once people are infected, it can be deadly. But he says cases aren't common.
Well, hantavirus overall is a rare disease by the numbers. However, it is still a consistent threat in the United States. And the thing about Colorado is it's part of the unique Four Corners region, which comprises of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, where nearly half of all U.S. cases are actually concentrated.
The region, home to a deadly outbreak of hantavirus in 1993. Since then, Colorado has reported more than 120 cases, according to the state health department. 45 of those cases were fatal. Dr. Ponce says the cruise ship cases are being watched closely.
The CDC, the World Health Organization, a lot of people are paying really close attention to this.
But President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the World Health Organization. Ponce says that weakens access to the WHO's data sharing, a kind of global early warning system.
So for a virus like this that originates in international waters, such as the South American ports, losing these channels of communication and early monitoring do delay our awareness of new cases and statistics.
Ponce says the state still has policies in place to help monitor and report hantavirus, but those federal changes could still be felt.
The downside to this withdrawal is that, a lot of the federal government does fund a large portion of the epidemiology budget. So any major federal cuts could still weaken Colorado's ability to respond regardless of the state's own policies.
And while hantavirus cases can be extremely deadly, Dr. Ponce says he doesn't think it poses a widespread threat like we've seen from COVID-19 or the flu. Hantavirus needs prolonged intimate contact to spread, helping keep cases down. Rachel Krause, 9 News.
Turning now to the weather with Kathy Sabin. Kathy, a beautiful day out there for Mother's Day today.
Really, Mark, you and I were talking. The whole weekend was beautiful, and we got to share time with our family. Hopefully you all did as well. This time last night, we were tracking a few thunderstorms. Tonight, it is clear and calm after a picture-perfect day with sunshine and 60s along the Front Range. This may be the coolest day of the week as we're about to get an early preview of summer. And while the winds are calm tonight, there is a weather system to the north and west of us that may move in on Tuesday as a dry front for Denver, but could produce a few showers in the mountains and wind along the Front Range, which could increase the fire danger. Temperatures are really comfortable in the 50s now. We'll bottom out in the mid-40s overnight. And coming up, we're going to talk about, after this mild night, what are we looking at for the upcoming week? We could be in record territory with high temperatures in the 80s almost each and every afternoon. But I also mentioned we're tracking not one but 2 weak cool fronts. We'll have the timing and impact of those weather changes ahead.
A new report is raising questions about the economic impact of the Trump administration's mass deportation efforts. Researchers say increased ICE activity may not be creating more jobs for U.S.-born workers and could actually be shrinking the labor force overall. Here's 9 News reporter Angeline McCall.
For every immigration arrest, researchers are finally understanding the ripple effects.
And ICE is really doing the most indiscriminate job it's ever done in the modern era. And what we see that translating to in terms of economic activity is that the chilling effects on the immigrant population are much larger than what we've seen in the past.
Through her latest research, Chloe East, associate professor at CU Boulder, she found that each immigration arrest impacts another 6 workers and their jobs.
And the reason that one arrest might lead to actually more than one immigrant worker dropping out of the labor market is because of what we call chilling effects, where immigrants who are living in a community where they hear reports of ICE in their community might be less likely to leave their home for any reason, including going to work.
For an area of about 1,200 arrests, East found the local workforce would be reduced by about 7,500, and they found the most impacted workers to be men.
And so we zoom in on agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and wholesale as the sectors where we think the effects are going to be the most acute.
Her research discovered the most impacted industry, construction. And despite promises from Trump to return those positions to U.S.-born workers, that isn't the case, according to East.
And employers are having a hard time filling those jobs. We don't see any evidence that U.S.-born workers are taking those jobs left behind, at least overall on the aggregate.
Much of East's work comes from information from document and data requests as the Trump administration hasn't proactively released information about the number of deportations, detentions, or immigration arrests. In the studio, Angeline McCall, 9 News.
President Donald Trump has forcefully rejected Iran's latest proposal to end the war, calling it, quote, unacceptable. He has threatened to end a fragile ceasefire and resume full-scale bombing if Iran doesn't agree to the U.S.'s proposal to end the conflict. Iran's proposal was communicated to the U.S. via Pakistani mediators today. Iranian state television says the country demands an end to sanctions and full-scale control of the Strait of Hormuz, a critical trade route for oil, of course. In a social media post late this afternoon, the president said he doesn't like the deal, which does not include a rollback of Iran's nuclear program. Energy Secretary Chris Wright, a former oil and gas executive from here in Colorado, says the end goal is to end that program and reopen the strait for unrestricted travel.
Well, the top priority is ending Iran's nuclear program. The world simply cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. They've got nearly 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium. You know, this is close to weapons-grade uranium. There's no commercial or peaceful use of nuclear weapons. They always lie and say they're doing this for their nuclear power industry. Just total nonsense.
Iran's leadership has shown no willingness to slow down the country's nuclear program. This weekend, a spokesperson said Iran's military is, quote, on full readiness to protect stores of enriched uranium.